Welcome to another episode of Mana Drain. I'm Max Born again. I'm flying solo, which we've got a little bit of a channel update that I kind of want to talk a little bit about because we've kind of been in this solo mode, or I've been in this solo mode for quite a while now, for a couple weeks at least, or at least a couple episodes, just because of how late I've been recording and late I've been working. And I kind of want to get to the premise of what I want this show, this podcast, this stream, whatever you want to call it, to be about. And lately, it's kind of divulged into something that I didn't intend it to, where it was like about the Deck Tech series, where we're following along like with the Friday Night Magic deck we're building. Me and my son, excuse me, and. We do the card previews and things like that, and really kind of what I want to get this particular show. I want to get this show kind of to switch gears, and I want to focus on like the news of Magic the Gathering for the week or for the past week, some tournament results and things like that, and then I still want to have those other videos, but I don't want them to take up the slot of the podcast. So I think what we're going to do moving forward is the Mana Drain podcast is going to be about your news. It's going to be about your tournaments from the weekend before, since we're going to normally be recording on Monday. It'll be a good opportunity to talk about those past weekends, and what happened and things like that. And then, we'll talk about some spoilers and things like that if they're like super relevant, or, if they're just too spicy to ignore, rather, is really kind of what it breaks down to. And then the other content that we've seen regularly in these past few episodes, the deck techs for brewing sessions with me and my son, and just the fun videos, the set reviews, or the full spoiler reviews or whatever as they come out on a daily basis. Those will be their own videos. They won't take the slot of a Mana Drain time slot on Monday evenings. So that's kind of where I wanted to come out and give you guys like a heads up as to what to expect going forward. And this show, we're going to change the backgrounds or the layovers and things like that. So, haven't quite got that far yet, but I still wanted to put a show out this week on the channel for Mana Drain to kind of kick us off in fashion. And I've kind of got like a really interesting topic to talk about. And again, if you want to subscribe to the channel, head over to youtube.com/72DPI online. Really appreciate the subscriptions, trying to build that subscription base for the Magic community. We've got video game content on there, streams, podcasts about video games and comic books and movies and TV shows and things like that, all over on youtube.com/72DPI online. So make sure you head over there, get subscribed, leave us a comment, tell us what you like about the show, what you don't like. We're open to criticism. I can handle it. Be as horrible as you want to be, but be constructive, right? I want to know what you like about the channel, but what you don't like and what you'd like to see better, so we can kind of evolve this over time. So with that being said, let's kind of get into the topic or topics of the day. And really what I wanted to start this week off with is 4.5 things. It's really 4, but the fourth one is half a thing, like 1.5. 4.5 things that I feel that Wizards can do today to improve Magic the Gathering for the fans. Okay. So some of these are a little more controversial than others, and they've been in the news, starting to get into some mainstream news lately for some of these. But I wanted to talk about it. I want to put my stamp on where I stand as a player, where I stand as a father, where I stand as content creator, all that stuff. Not that anybody cares or anything like that, but I just want to. It's always good to kind of talk these things out, and I want to hear about your guys' views and your guys' opinions in the comments below. We've got YouTube chat going. We've got Facebook chat going. We're up on Twitch at twitch.tv/72DPI online. Chime in. Let me know if you think I'm wrong, if you agree with it, and we'll go from there. So, number one, the biggest complaint that I see across the board no matter what side of the spectrum you're on some of these other issues. But the common issue number one is cardstock. And it doesn't just start with it doesn't stop with just the cardstock, but the print quality. We did a video, I believe, a few months back with the was it Ixalan or Rivals of Ixalan pre-release. I think it was the Rivals. It was the most recent one. Yeah, it was the most recent one where the card printing was god awful, and we made some specific examples on the stream. They weren't very clear pictures, but in person, you know what I'm talking about. It's all over the internet. You can find it if you just do a simple Google search for it. But like it seems, some cards come off like the print is in bold because some of the layers are off centered by a few pixels, and these cards are getting packaged and sent out to customers. And I found it kind of extremely disturbing that these were in pre-release kits, because this is the first experience that most people have with your set. And if that's their first experience, they're like, well, I'm not going to spend any money on this. Their quality control is garbage. So you couple that with the terrible cardstock, the curling of the foils, and not even the foils in some cases, just the bending all over the cards and and such, and it's to the point where it's unacceptable. Wizards hasn't come out directly and said that there's an issue. I think they should. Some people say, oh, it opens them up to lawsuits and things like that. But if you've got good PR and you've got a good replacement program, send us your send in your bent cards or your curled cards or whatever, and we'll send you back replacements or whatever the case may be. Some type of like return structure or whatever. It would be very difficult. Absolutely it would, but it's something that I think if they were to do that, they would save face on upcoming sets. Now the question is, they've recently been looking for a specialist to investigate these types of issues or oversee third party companies and things like that. And we all know that's corporate speak for, hey, we need you to go to all of the printers that we use and double check to make sure that they're doing the right thing and they're putting out a good product. Like, and that's sad that they have to appoint someone to that position without actually naming it or naming the issue, but it's a good first step. But the thing is, Wizards work so far in advance that if they appointed that person today, we would see the print run for the next 3 sets hasn't changed. Like, this change won't happen overnight. But I believe if they come out today and say, hey, you know what? We know there's a problem. This is how we're going to fix it. Send us your curled cards, because it doesn't cost them anything extra. I mean, it costs them it does cost them to reprint cards, but if you take into account the people that are not buying Magic cards because of the curling issue, I bet you they're losing more money than what they would gain back by paying out these curled cards and things like that. And obviously they couldn't go back, go all the way back to when the problem arose, but in recent sets, I would probably say like Kaladesh forward would be my suggestion. But that would be my number one thing, would be acknowledge the cardstock problem, acknowledge the printing issue, figure out a way to correct the issue, and save face by fixing most recent sets that were affected by it. Then of course go double down and go to the sets that are coming out in the future and correct those issues before they get shipped out to customers. That'll be the lifesaver right there. And then hold your printer accountable, right? We hold Wizards accountable. Hold your printer accountable. So that's number one. Number two is probably the most controversial thing on this list, is background checks. This is getting a very, I don't know what the word I want to use. This is getting kind of pushed under the rug a little bit by online outlets. there's people calling for background checks for our judges, for the vendors at these larger scale tournaments and things like that, and then at the local game stores. This shouldn't be a problem at all. I've worked in the way I view this issue is Wizards shouldn't have to pay anything, or they should pay for all of it. It doesn't, one or the other. It shouldn't be an issue. There's no reason that a person should feel threatened by going through a background check, to officiate or judge a Magic tournament where there's going to be minors, right? So I think I take issue with this where people put up like, oh, well, it costs so much money to run the background checks. I mean, $10 per person is just outrageous, right? And I kind of take issue with that because these judges are already footing the bill for their travel expenses and their hotels, and what's $10 more? You're not getting paid to do what you're doing anyway, right? Like, that's my first thought. You're paying hundreds of dollars to fly to these events. You're getting paid by here's a box of cards, or here's a set of cards, or here's a judge promo, or here's this. You're getting paid with card stock, but not with like currency. So what's an extra $10 for the year? I'm not talking $10 for one event. We could have you re-up your background check every 2 years, right? Every year seems a little strict. I don't see a problem with it. It's $10 a year. You want to keep your license, should just be part of it. That's just my opinion. But the other side of it, and what I really think needs to happen, is Wizards just needs to step up and say, you know what, we are going to fund not only the background checks, but we're going to fund the judge program. These people need to be hired by Wizards so they can go through the same background checks, the same interview processes, and everything that Wizards puts its employees through. Just because, they are an arm of Wizards. So at the end of the day, this should just be the fix. Judges should be employees of Wizards, right? I'm not 100% sure on the coverage team. I know a lot of them are kind of like freelancers, and there's some that are like more every event type of personalities and things like that. I'm sure they get paid for that service, or I'm sure they're on retainer of some sort. Man, you need to hire them judges. And even if it's just like the level 3 judges, like the high level judges or whatever, and then, have them bring more people in through some type of referral program or something like that. I'm not 100% sure what the logistics would be, but with how much money gets made through the Pro Tour, some of that needs to go back into the judge program. I don't know if it's minimum wage. I don't know if it's, hey, we're not going to pay you, but we'll give you free product, and we'll pay for your room, and we'll pay for your flight, or heck, you not even your flight. Maybe they just have like, hey, these are the biggest areas we have where judges live or work, or judge F&M and things like that, or judge higher level events. We should consider wrapping the Pro Tour around those locations so we don't have to worry about flying people in. Common sense, right? I'm sure plenty of judges would, from that area, if they contacted like, hey, we're going to have a Pro Tour or a GP in your area. We need you there. This is the time slot. This is how much we're going to pay you. Take it or leave it. We need 15, we need 30, we need 50, we need 100 judges. This is how much we're allowed. And let them bid on it. Let them say, hey, I will take that. That's worth it. That's worth my time, right? Let them bid on it. The other issue, kind of going backwards, working on the background checks, this is an absolute must. Even if they just do the bare minimum, right? Like which they've already kind of done already. Like, local game stores, you're required to have background checks, but there's no like security net saying that they're going to do it. There's no ramifications saying they're not doing it. In fact, you have local game stores coming out against this, saying that they're refusing to do this, right? So why are we supporting those local game stores who aren't? I mean, what are you hiding? It's not an infringement on your rights. In fact, to get a job almost anywhere in the United States, at least, you have to go through a background check, right? I worked for a private contractor recently. I had to supply a background check from a reputable source. They gave me recommendations on where to go. They said you could do this one, you could do this one. Here's a free one if you have trouble paying for one. I'm not exactly sure what would come back on that free background check, but I was going into people's homes, right? I was handling their food. I was delivering things to their personal residence while they're home, at least. So I imagine any type of vandalism, any type of misdemeanors, any type, any type of aggression, whatever it might be, would probably flag that and say, we probably shouldn't hire this guy, right? The same thing, like the exact same thing. We're not looking for in-depth information. We're just looking for two type of people, right? Abusers and child abusers. Like, we're just looking for those types of people to not be part of our community. That's all we're asking. And it's not even part of the community. Like, I don't mind if they play in the event and stuff like that. Like, that's fine. Like, whatever. If you've served your time and you're clean and you're not feeling the little kid's legs anymore, then fine, play in the event. But I don't think you should be officiating, being in a place of power over these children. As a father, it makes me a little nervous. It's going to be a long time before I let Eli go to an event by himself. You'll be damn sure that I'm right next to him every second that he goes to an event. So when he starts playing events by himself, like when he can, like, because right now we play Two-Headed Giant, where we're playing side by side in the same exact match, right? So when he gets old enough to be able to read the cards, understand the cards, and how they interact, the full game of Magic, and he wants to go to like Friday Night Magic, it's going to be a hard decision for me to say, well, I'd like to play in that too. But no, you know what? I need to stay right behind you, because I'm not so sure that this location has actually gone through the background checks and terminated, or at least removed the person that did not pass the background checks from the Friday Night Magic scene. So that would be number 2. Background checks, enforce them. I know they said they were requiring them, and Channel Fireball says they're requiring them, but we haven't come out. We haven't seen any public outcry or any public, there's no PR around this. And the problem with that is there's such an outcry for this type of issue to be resolved that it's not going to go away. It's really not. So if they just need to bite the bullet, do the background checks themselves, and then any changes in like local game stores and things like that, that shit just needs to be public. It just does, because how else do we know that they're doing them and abiding by the rules? Number 3 this isn't going to be a very popular one, only because of the platform that we have, that I'm on right now, YouTube, and that's spoilers. I'm kind of a firm believer that spoilers kind of ruin the set, right? They kind of ruin the fun of going to pre-release, of having that magical Christmas land where you don't know everything before you open a pack of cards. Now, that's not to say spoilers don't have their place. Because the spoiler season, especially with Wizards, where they release cards to certain YouTubers and community members and things like that, that's really good community engagement, right? But we don't need to release every single card. I mean, I'm not asking for a card. I don't want a card. My 23 subscribers, no. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is we don't need to release every card in the set before the set releases, right? What we should do is we should plan out what types of themes we want to spoil before the set releases, so that the set itself. So and this kind of goes into the next one, which, believe it or not, it wasn't meant to be, but it seems like it's going to be. So that the players and the people that are going to purchase cards and go to these events and pre-release and things like that, and draft and sealed, and they know enough about the set to say, okay, I'm not going into this blind, but here, Wizards talked about pirates in Ixalan, and how pirates are going to have the raid mechanic. So obviously with the raid mechanic, they're going to be aggressive, and they're going to need, they're going to have big enter the battlefield effects on your second main phase and things like that. So you're going to want to have options with instants and things, So you're going to want to know like overarching archetypes and things like that. And yes, you can still spoil cards. I'm not saying not to. Go ahead and spoil cards, but just don't spoil the whole set, right? Giving people the option to open a pack of cards and be like, oh my God, this would work perfect. Like, this is what we were talking about on last night's podcast, or this is what it's the so-and-so channel was talking about when they spoiled the last card, and we had 30 of the 200 cards spoiled. Like, this was the card that's going to make this deck viable. And then you're talking to the person next to you, and that's where the conversation kind of builds up when your set releases. But when you spoil the entire set, you kind of just take the wind out of people's sails at pre-release. So like, you open up, all right, I opened up a Glorybringer. Yes, I got there. But if Glorybringer, think about if Glorybringer wasn't one of the cards that was spoiled, like, oh my God, this thing is amazing. Like, it just like comes into play. You can attack with it, and you can deal 4 damage, and it deals 4 damage by itself. Like, what other cards are like that? You know what I mean? Like, what else didn't they spoil? It gives you that sense of wonder, and that's what I miss about Magic. And God love the internet, but when you over spoil and it kind of goes into the overhyping of some of the sets and things like that, you don't create a natural hype. You give them all the cards, and they're like, okay, here's all the cards. What can you do with it? But the thing is, all that information is going to come out day one anyway. So, I mean, why not let at least the pre-releasers experience your hardcore gamers that go to the pre-releases every weekend, spend hundreds of dollars, not on boxes, but on events that benefit your local game store. Why not throw them a bone by saying, you know what, we're just gonna release 30 cards of the 200 and some. Some of them might be common, mythic, rare, whatever, and just let it go. Just let it go like that. So that's number 3. Number 4.5, the last one. This one's a big one, and this one I really want to get some feedback from you guys on this, because I think we're onto something. I really think this is something that we as a community need to stand up and say, hey, this is really what we want. And that's clear purpose for products. And really this kind of encompasses just the master sets. Because, it kind of starts off with Iconic Masters, and we all know how abysmal that set, well, not really the set was, but how horrible that set was handled, in the sense that it was so overprinted and so overhyped, and it was so misleading that people were so upset that they stopped buying cards. There's some really good cards in that set, but because it was overhyped and people felt betrayed, and it was just like, it wasn't very customer friendly, right? And it all kind of stems around and goes back to that magical word, iconic, right? And then going fast forward to Masters 25, the 25th anniversary of Magic the Gathering. They did an okay job kind of giving us an idea. The set is, a celebration of the 25 years of Magic, and like they did the whole like, yeah, we're gonna have a couple cards from each set and blah blah blah, and they put the little watermark on the back. Very nice touch, by the way. Really love that. And they brought back Jace, Mind Sculptor, and whether you see that as a money grab or not a money grab, or maybe they unbanned it just to make the card values go up or whatever. It does matter, but it doesn't matter in this argument. But Jace is one of those iconic cards in Magic's history. Absolutely he is. If you think about what he did when he was released, when he was banned, he's absolutely should be in that type of set. I'm not arguing that. But what I am arguing is, what's the purpose of this set? And if you look at Wizards' website, you go to the Magic 25 thing or whatever, they do a piss poor job of telling you about the set. I mean, they tell you what it is, like, this is a celebration, kind of like what I led into this number 4.5. And at the very end, they mention the word draft one time, uno time. One draft, one time draft. And I think that's where we as consumers, we kind of get mixed up in the fact that, originally the master sets were to give us a good draft environment, but really reprint cards that were in desperate need of reprinting, whether it's they were hard to find or they were so popular that it increased the price through the roof. Which, again, if they're hard to find, they're probably, super expensive. But again, I digress. We need a clear representation of what these sets are meant to do. If it's a draft set, great. Do we really need $10 packs for draft sets? No. I would beg to differ. We do not need $10 packs for draft sets. Not at all. We don't need Jace the Mind Sculptor in draft sets. No. We need Jace Mind Sculptor in Iconic Masters because it's an iconic effing card. That's where we need Jace the Mind Sculptor. And, I'll give them a pass because Magic 2015, they did market it as this is a celebration of the past 25 years. So, yeah, he should be involved in that. But he shouldn't be involved. We're crossing too many streams here. Is it a draft set or is it a celebration of cards that from the past 25 years of Magic? If you want to do both, then we need to have a clearer representation in the cards themselves. And no, I don't believe Jace is a good draft card at all. No, just it's literally a win more card in draft. So if they're so hell bent on, and they are, if they're so hell bent on this draft format, pick up a box, kind of like a board game almost. It almost seems like they want like an exclusive inclusive board game, card game in a box. Friday nights or Thursday nights when you and your 8 buddies want to get together and you want to draft, you go down to your local game store, you take one of these things off the shelf and you go home and you draft it. If that is you, and that's many people that play Modern Masters sets, then we need a specific draft set just for them. And we don't want to talk about reprinted cards. They don't, I know they'll never acknowledge the secondary market, but that's exactly what these master sets are. They need to call it something else. They need to call it draft something, right? If they're looking for, to reprint cards that are, difficult, then they need a set to do that. Like, hey, this is a set that, we're talking directly towards modern players. This is your modern set or modern Masters. Holy cow, Modern Masters. Why didn't they? Oh, they did think of that. That's right. They did think of that. And then they started saying, oh, wait, maybe we should make it a draft set and sell the packs for $10. I don't mind a $10 pack of cards if there's going to be value there, right? And then this kind of, this kind of goes down to a whole nother rabbit hole of, should you open packs of cards to make money? No, you shouldn't. Nope. No, if you're trying to make money off your drafts, or you're trying to make money off cracking packs, you're not doing it right. I hate to say it. I know there's a lot of YouTube channels out there with a lot of followers. There's a lot of subscribers. You're not playing lottery. You shouldn't play the lottery in the Magic world. You should buy singles. You really should. You should buy singles and stay away from packs. Packs are for drafting. That's just all there is to it. But if Wizards does want to make a set that's specifically for reprinted cards and popular cards in a series, then they should go back to, not necessarily go back to like the dual decks, but they should make dual decks, but in the form of a draft environment. Or not, excuse me, not draft. I just messed up. They should make a set that forms around like tribes and things like that, or like a certain archetypes and things like that, and put that into the world of the secondary market. I'm just saying, when you buy a box of when you buy a box of Modern Masters, right? The Master set where it's not made for draft. This is not made for draft. We are not going to sell 3 packs at Walmart. We're going to sell you $10 packs at your local game store or $300 boxes because there's value in this MFR. And the reason why there's value is because, hey, we noticed that there needs to be more of X, Y, and Z card printed. Well, why would we just print X, Y, and Z? Why don't we print enough, of that set, of that deck in this set, so that you can, if you were to open up this box, you could potentially build that deck. It's just a thought. Just a thought. Take it or leave it how it is. And then the second part of this, the way to fix standard, and I know I've talked about this on the podcast before, so I apologize for repeating myself, but the second part of this, understanding what products have clear purposes, we need to have like like a standard battle pack that releases shortly after, like same time the ban restricted list comes out, right? Rather than banning and restricting cards, why don't we say, hey, you know what? We watched the last 4 weeks of coverage on the Pro Tour, on the GP circuit, on Star City Games. These are the top 20, top 15 decks. Each one of those decks is getting 4 or 5 cards, right? Now let's see what happens. Right, all these, and it's a battle pack, or maybe it's only like 100 cards or something like that. And yeah, it's not going to be for draft, and it's not going to be, inclusive in the standard set. And yeah, they're not going to be the same. They're not going to be in rotation as long as the actual the set proper. So like if they, there's a ban and restricted list coming up soon, and there's already been like 3 weeks of gameplay with Ixalan, and 3 weeks after the release, you've got this kind of battle pack kind of version 1.5 to kind of fix some of the things that Wizards doesn't have the brain, I don't want to say the brain power, but the manpower. I mean, the internet is a crazy thing. Like you realize if you didn't, want to brew anything, you could go online and find billions of decks, different combinations of decks to play in standard, modern, legacy, vintage, and so on down the line. Pauper just kind of blows that out of the water even further, but that's a whole nother story. But at the end of the day, these battle packs could really, if it's 100 cards and the top, the top 10 archetype, or no, not even the top 10, maybe it's, places 20 through 5. Right? Those 15 decks get 4 cards each to help them combat the top 5 decks, right? Then all of a sudden you have this shift in power, and you don't have to ban cards. There's new cards in the game that allow people to say, oh, wow, this is really good. This is exactly what this archetype needed. So there's a couple things that I think Wizards can do to improve Magic. Am I quitting Magic? Are we quitting Magic, playing altogether if they don't do these? No. The background check thing does hit a little close to home, but card stock, number 1. Background checks, number 2 at your events. Number 3, the spoiler season does not need to include every single card. Just the high-profile archetypes, just the high-profile YouTube channels really should get them. Some of the lower, the mid-range YouTube channels should get them to help popularity and help community outreach and things like that. I know, I realize that. Number 4, set these non-standard sets need to have a purpose, a clear purpose. If it's a draft set, it needs to be a draft set. I don't want modern reprints and legacy reprints and vintage reprints in these draft formats. Unless, of course, they are good draft cards, then fine, great, go for it. But what I'm saying is that should not be an avenue for reprints, because we're getting this huge mix-up, this huge misconception that, oh man, Modern Masters and Masters 25 should be all about the value. But you can't have a game store making money and the customer making money and Wizards you can't. It's not possible. There's no way around it. So it needs to go to a target audience. Is it a drafter, or is it somebody that plays Modern? Because I tell you what, I don't plan on buying any Modern 25. A, because the packs are too expensive. B, it's never worth opening them. We opened up a couple of the iconic Masters and got garbage. So it's not worth the gamble. And I don't draft. I can draft online, but I don't do it because it's only fun when I can get 8 of my friends together. So it's not for me. Won't cover it, won't buy it, not for me. But if it was like, hey, you know what? We need to inject some more of the, Mox Diamond again, or whatever the case may be. I'm sure Mox is on the restricted list. But anyway, those are the 5 things, 4.5 things, whatever. Let me know in the comments below if you disagree, if you agree, if I missed something, or if you feel I was off base. There's a couple options there. Make sure you head over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/72DPI online. Get subscribed, leave us a comment, thumbs up if you liked the episode, thumbs down if you didn't. Either way, I appreciate it. Appreciate the outreach. We'll be back next Monday. Like I said, we're going to change the kind of the format of the show, the overlays and all that stuff. Hopefully will change to fit the actual theme of the show, and we'll go from there. So we should be back tomorrow night with a Ball and Chain podcast episode, so stay tuned for that. Head over to twitch.tv/72DPI online to watch that live tomorrow night. I think that's about it, guys. Yeah, I think that's it. All right, have a great night, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.